What is Spider-Man's top web-swinging speed in Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4? Always wanted to do that. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever, well, for 2019 anyway, Theory of the Wraith. My name is Brian, you're here in the Chamber of the Wraith, I got my Spider-Man shirt on, and you know what we're covering in this episode. That's right, we're taking a look at the theory that is actually right in the intro. How fast can Spider-Man web swing in Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4? Now, there's a couple of things that we need to figure out first. Number one, how are we going to measure how the distance-wise of Spider-Man? Because in a lot of open-world games, sizes tend to be tough to gauge because either they're engaged in open worlds that have no real landmarks. And what I mean by that is that there's nothing for us to truly gauge as to how big something actually is. Like, we don't know in centimeters or meters how tall Kratos or Atreus are, so it's hard to tell how tall this sort of search really is. Or the units they use don't make any sense, or they're just straight inconsistent. Or there's no units to work with at all. Like in Prototype, there is no unit that tells you how far the next glide challenge is if you've marked it on your minimap like you can see here. It's not marked in meters or kilometers or miles or feet. It's not marked in any way, shape, or form, so it's hard to gauge how big the city is and thus how fast Alex Mercer can actually move. But thankfully, Spider-Man does have a way to kind of look at that. Also, we're not just going to be looking at Spider-Man's web swinging. I want to look at his sprinting speed, as in if you hold the R2 button and move forward, how fast does Spider-Man go? How fast can he run up a wall? A little bonus as to just how quickly he's wall climbing. And as a final little bonus, we're going to take a look at the velocity web swinging ability. The velocity suit power that comes with the velocity suit. It's called Blitz, actually, which is supposed to make you run faster, and it transfers momentum into enemies, allowing you to damage them by running straight into them. Now, I want to see if by sprinting and sprinting with Blitz on, which is actually faster, and if the suit power really lives up to its name. So, with all of that out of the way, let's thwip off to find out what's going on. Woo!
I'm losing him! Gotta catch up. I hate to tell you this, guys, but I see a lot of drivers in your future.
With any good experiment, you're going to need units, and accurate units at that. And fortunately, it seems Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4 has some of the most accurate measurement units in waypoint form I've seen in an open-world game. The Empire State Building, if you were to run from the bottom to the observation deck, is 386 meters according to Spider-Man PS4. However, the real Empire State Building from the ground floor to the observation deck is 381 meters. We can account the extra 5 meters for the fact that Spidey kind of has to thwip forward into the wall like this. So, being able to run all the way to the top, and then some, allows us to not only gauge that at least the units seem partially accurate, but we could also gauge how fast Spider-Man actually moved running up the Empire State Building. Let's do the math. Now that we know that our units are accurate, we just gotta run and time Spider-Man. Once we get to the observation deck, we'll know how fast he's going, which I conveniently did the timer and did some math. Now, running all the way to the observation deck took 21.68 seconds from street level to the observation deck right about now. Converting that into meters per second, Spidey was running at a top speed of 17.8 meters per second when he was running up the side of the wall. Now, how fast is that in miles per hour? The answer actually shocked me when I found out. 17.8 meters per second, when converted into kilometers per hour, is 64 kilometers per hour. Or for my friends in America who don't use the metric system, that is 39.8 miles per hour. That is faster than a thoroughbred racehorse. Spider-Man is able to outrun Seabiscuit and outrun any human on the track. In fact, the top estimated speed for any human with how our tendons are before... Hello, I'm back with broken glasses. Don't mind them. The reason why I am interrupting this part of the video is because as I was reviewing it in post, I discovered an article that completely contradicts what I say a few times in the video relating to top running speeds of a human before tendons start to snap. Particularly, I'm talking about a Live Science article from 2010, which, like all of the other things that I mentioned that have articles or anything, are linked down below that you can take a look at. And according to them, a top running speed based off of biomechanics could be upwards of 40 miles per hour. Though whether a human will ever reach that speed is hotly debated, not because tendons will snap, but just because of contact time with the ground. Just wanted to correct myself real quick. Don't forget the impact. And this is running up a building too, meaning that Spider-Man is fighting gravity. Which leads me to a wonder. After I ran up the side of the Empire State Building, I went into a straight free fall. So, how long did it take for Spider-Man to fall down to Earth? Because this is another interesting thing. Because a lot of games tend to have fall speeds that are faster than the real world, i.e. the Mario series, for instance, why not take a look and see how accurate the gravity is in Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4? Because if it's real gravity speeds, then we can calculate the actual gravitational forces 1-to-1 with Earth and see how much force Spider-Man's body takes when he takes a free fall from the Empire State Building. I imagine it's going to be a lot. So one thing to keep in mind is that with the Empire State Building and a lot of buildings, the highest point that you as somebody who's touring New York can go isn't the true highest point of the building. So if the Empire State Building is this, you might get to here, because the spire, you're technically not allowed to be on that spire. I guess unless you're Spider-Man, because, you know, vigilante superheroes and stuff. But the old webhead can get up to that spire, and I did. And then I fell to the ground. Now, from the spire to the ground is 443 meters. Alright, so that is roughly a quarter of a mile in height. That is a long way to fall, by the way. This means that if we calculate how long it takes for Spider-Man to fall down, we'll get a speed, of course. So that is actually what I did while I was calculating the height. I just ran lap as soon as I started falling and fell right to the ground. And I got 7.5 seconds. So, using the ever-useful calculator, which happens to be on my smartphone, I can actually start to do some math. Now, I'm actually going to do it live for you guys so that you can get an idea as to how some of this actually works. So let's see, 443 meters divided by 7.5. Oh, wow. 59.06 meters per second, which we're going to round down to 59 meters per second for easy math. And why am I rounding down? That's because if you round the 0.6, you get 0.1, and you might as well just do 0 just for ease of math. It's a bit of a low ball, but whatever. But that is crazy. That means 59 meters per second. That is mind-blowing. Remember, running up the side of the frickin' building was 17.8, which if you round it up is 18. So Spidey is falling 3 times faster, essentially. Which means if we just simply, remember it's 59 meters per second, and we turn that, we multiply it by 3,600 to get an hour, because 60 times 60 is 3,600. Oh, wait, I did the math wrong. Hold on. 59 meters per second times 60 gets us 3,540 meters, or 3.5 kilometers per minute. Times 60 again gets us 212,400 meters per hour. Now, of course, we're not going to say 212,000 meters per hour. That's going to get into being a mouthful really fast. So divide by 1,000 in order to get your kilometers per hour, and you get 212.4 kilometers per hour. Holy shit, that is fast. Just for context, and again, I'm going to just do this live, converting that into miles per hour, which I'm just going to do with Google because it's faster this way. Let's see. 212, was it 0.4? Okay, so we'll round it up to 0.5. Kilometers to miles gets us 132.04 miles. Spidey at the top of his fall speed is falling at 130 miles per hour. Holy shit, that is insanity. But it leads to an interesting discovery. That's actually not that far off from a human's falling speed, believe it or not. And there is some empirical data that you can find on this topic. Now, looking to hypertextbook.com, which is a site I just found and I'm already in love with, you can actually look at multiple studies on multiple topics. In this case, since we're looking at the physics of a falling human, we're looking at studies that relate to skydivers, because that's what Spidey is essentially doing. He's skydiving. Right from, he's almost doing a base jump, which is essentially something where you launch off of a point, whether it be a building or a cliff, fall like the Dickens, and then pull a parachute. It's kind of like skydiving, but you're not jumping out of a plane, and you're not in the air for quite as long. Though if you mess up, you're still gonna be a bloody, grisly pancake on the ground. Not a visual that I'm sure you want to have a look at. But there are multiple studies on the topic. Now, as I scroll down, I find 5 separate studies on the topic. The first one is from Tipler, Paul A., and College Physics in New York, which was in 1987. The result with surrounding text is, for a skydiver with parachute closed, the terminal velocity is about 200 kilometers per hour. Now, if you remember earlier, I said Spidey was falling at 212.5 kilometers per hour, which, again, that is really close. We are essentially within a 5% margin of error, which is incredible. But Spidey is falling a little bit faster, but that is, of course, just from one study. As we look into another study, this time talking about from rec.skydiving FAQ, which is also sourced here in the Hyper textbook. By diving or standing up in freefall, any experienced skydiver can reach speeds of over 160 to 180 miles per hour, or a maximum speed of like 143 meters per second. That's meters, not kilometers. That is, just wrapping my head around that, that is almost a third of the speed of sound. These skydivers really turn themselves into bullets if they dive straight down like that. So Spidey is not falling at the maximum possible speed of a skydiver. But there's a couple of reasons for that we can understand. One, he's in a city and he's not jumping out of a plane. If he was jumping out of a plane, he'd have minutes in order to get to a safe altitude to pull the parachute and fall safely to Earth. Spider-Man A does not have a parachute, at least not in most of the renditions that we're familiar with. And Spidey also is falling a lot shorter distances. He's not falling from kilometers in the air where he's got minutes to pull the ripcord and be safe. He's got seconds. So, landing at those speeds, I imagine even for Spider-Man, is going to hurt, if not potentially kill him. Because hitting the ground at those speeds is just not pretty, but we're going to save that for another time. But obviously it is desirable to slow back down to 110 miles per hour before opening a parachute. Yeah, because you don't want to open your parachute and have it tear off from the forces of it jerking you back to a safe speed. Speeds of over 200 miles per hour require significant practice to achieve as well, according to rec.skydiver.faq. So, that makes sense. While Spidey's been around for 8 years, I don't imagine he's been spending all of those 8 years practicing how to free fall at 200 miles per hour. He's practicing his web swinging and doing advanced mathematics on the fly. So, let's get to the main topic of the video finally. Let's finally talk web swinging speed. This is going to be fun. Now, as this is supposed to be Spider-Man's top web swinging speed, I free fell for a little bit in order to build up the speed in order to get maximum possible swing speed. Regardless, Spidey cleared a distance of 320 meters in 9.5 seconds. So how fast was that exactly? I estimated that when I looked at the time and the distance traveled, that Spider-Man would be traveling at roughly 35 meters per second. So, let's test the math to make sure that I was right. Let's do 320 meters because, admittedly, the waypoint kind of disappeared before I could get an exact starting point. So I'm going to kind of lowball it and aim for 320 instead of highball it for 330, you know? But anyway, 320 meters divided by 9.5 gets us 33.68 meters per second. There we go. Gets us 33.68 meters per second. So let's round it up, 33.7 meters per second. So, how fast is that? Now, I'm going to double check just to make sure that what I said earlier about 3600 is true, because you never want to make assumptions when you're doing math. So, let's do it the long way, and then we'll do it the quick way just to make sure we got the right number. So, crap, I totally forgot. I can't believe I just forgot what number it was. This is why I do these things live, because it also allows for a laugh. Hold on a second. 320 divided by 9.5 is 33. Okay, so 33.7. 33.7 times 60. That is 2,022 meters per minute. Times 60 is 121.32 meters, which means if we divide that by 1,000, we get a top web swinging speed of 121 kilometers per hour. That's actually pretty quick. But before we assume, let's make sure that my other method was correct. 33.7 times 3,600. Yep, gets us 121,320, which, if you remember, we divide by 1,000 to get kilometers, 121.32. So, multiplying your number by 3,600 is a faster, just as accurate way to do it. I said it earlier, but I ended up, when I saw the numbers, I kind of got, whoa. So, I decided to do it the long way just to make sure I knew what I was doing. But 121 kilometers per hour. That sounds pretty fast, especially if you're metrically inclined. But if you're from somewhere that still uses imperial units, then that probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense to you because the kilometer has not been widely adopted yet. So, how quick is that? Let's take a look, and maybe learn a little something in the process. So, what I learned after a little bit of light Googling, because, you know, Google is a overanalyzer's best friend. Sorry if you can't really see, I know the brightness thing. And shitty camera, whatever. Point is, through some light Googling, I found that if you want to turn a kilometer into a mile, divide your kilometers by a value of 1.609. And to turn miles into kilometers, you also multiply it by 1.609. Or I guess if you don't need exactly precise, but it's essentially close enough, 1.61, but I would do 1.609. So, let's take a look and see if I can do the thing. So, I'm going to open up the old calculator. Right, meow. You can see the little equals button. There we go. So, we know it's 121.32 kilometers per hour. So, if we divide that by 1.609, or 1.6, it seems to be really close, but not close enough. So, multiplying it by dividing it by 1.609 gets us 75.4 miles per hour. Now, if we check Google, who's kind of an expert at this kind of thing, if we plug in 121.3, we get exactly the same. Yeah, so this is a viable way to get your thing. Just divide kilometers by 1.6 to get your miles, and then multiply by 1.609 to get your kilometers, which that's actually really fantastic. We've all learned something today. Yay! I love it when we get to learn stuff. So, Spider-Man is web swinging through Manhattan at a top speed of 75.4 miles per hour. That is faster than a cheetah. Spider-Man, in his web swinging, if he was the only superhero around, through his web swinging, he would be the fastest living thing on Earth, in a sense, on the land, because there is the Peregrine Falcon, and also humans driving cars. But seriously, if you're trying to run from Spider-Man, good luck, because at 75 miles per hour, that is highway speeds. Those are almost highway speeds. And in a crowded metropolis like New York, even if you were pulling 80 miles per hour through these crazy streets, through the streets of Manhattan, it wouldn't take very long for Spider-Man to catch up with you, because you have to make sharp turns, and you have to make sure you don't crash into buildings and cars and stuff. Spidey's got free reign, because he's the only one who's web swinging, for the most part. So, because of that, he's not going to collide into a car if he moves too quickly. With his agility and spider sense, he can easily transition into his 40 mile per hour wall run, which is insane. And then dive bomb, at 120, at like over 100 miles an hour at least. Good luck, criminals, you're not getting away from this guy. But now that we did what we came here for and solved how fast Spidey is web swinging through New York City at a top speed, why don't we figure out some other things? Because I did say there were other things I wanted to figure out, including, does the Blitz ability actually work? Let's find out. Now, when I did both of these tests, I ran both of the Spider-Man at 100 meters, which is a standard 100-meter dash. Spider-Man normally would clear this distance in exactly 10 seconds, no problem, even if the waypoint disappears after about 10 meters. However, what I discovered was that Spider-Man is actually slightly faster with the Blitz on. But I do mean slightly. He beat this in about 8.7 seconds as opposed to 10 seconds. And what I found was quite surprising, actually. Spider-Man actually does run a little bit faster in Blitz mode. I mean, it seems counterintuitive. Of course he'd be running faster than 100 in Blitz mode. I mean, it literally says it in the description. But again, sometimes there are errors in text that makes them say something when they really don't. But the guys over at Insomniac did not overlook this. Spidey actually does run slightly faster in Blitz mode. And when I say slightly faster, I mean relatively, of course, because going from 10 seconds to basically 8.75 seconds is incredible. But how incredible is it? There's such a thing known in the sprinting world as the 10-second barrier. You crush this, you're essentially best of the best, creme de la creme, you're Olympic tier, and you can go to the Olympics, no sweat. But as it is, it's a barrier. It's kind of an ultimate plateau. And Spidey hasn't quite beaten that yet. Spidey's top sprinting speed, normally unaugmented, besides spider powers, of course, got him to 10 seconds flat, which is slower than 1991 gold medal winner Carl Lewis's 9.81 seconds. And in that same race, the silver medalist was 9.9 seconds to Lewis Bowl. I'm probably saying his name wrong. I'll correct it down here, because I like to do that, so make sure that I'm as accurate as I can be. But of course, that's not the world record anymore. In 2009, the world record actually went to our boy Usain Bolt, who in 2009 crushed the record at 9.58 seconds, which is incredible. So, let us take a look at the 10-second winnings and see how that worked out. Now, I already did the math, so because I didn't want to do the math again and again on the screen, because you already know what it is by now. You get your speeds, you convert it to meters per second, you then turn it into kilometers per hour, and then if you want, convert it to miles. And what I found is that running the 100-meter dash in 10 seconds flat results in a top running speed of 22.37 miles per hour. Or, if we just convert that back into kilometers, 36 kilometers per hour exactly. This is the beauty of the metric system, folks. Because it was 100 meters in 10 seconds, it was so easy to just break it down. It was literally 10 meters per second. That was literally what it was. It was that easy. But when we turned on Blitz, Spidey went from beating the 100-meter dash in 10 seconds flat to beating the 100-meter dash in 8.75 seconds, which is a 12.5% reduction in time, which is crazy. It's shaving 1/8 off of that time, which is incredible for a human. But of course, Spidey is superhuman, but that's the thing. Despite all of his superhuman qualities, he's still an Olympic-level sprinter normally. The Blitz tack augments his running speed. So how fast is running the 100-meter dash in 8.75 seconds? Well, according to some math again, I got 42.35 kilometers per hour. Converting that to miles, you get 26.32 miles per hour, which is me again, just letting you know that, again, I made that goof about the 27 miles per hour being the upper limit for human running, but it's all well and good, just letting you guys know. Because remember, he's running up a wall at 40 miles per hour. I'm not sure what he's doing leisurely jogging at 36 kilometers an hour. I'm kidding, of course. But now, let's take a look at one more little bonus before we get to one final test with the velocity suit, because I think this is worth noting. But first, a cute little bonus that should be relatively easy to do and figure out, just because, why not? It crossed my mind, so I figured we might as well do it. In case you were ever wondering how fast Spidey climbs up walls, well, according to my math, Spider-Man climbs up walls at 4.5 kilometers or 7.2 miles per hour. So, overall, the top web-swinging speed for Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4 is roughly 75 miles per hour, or 121 kilometers an hour for those of us who use the metric system. We also found some interesting little side bits. Spider-Man could totally make the Olympics with his sprinting speed, even without the Blitz on. The Blitz also cuts or increases speed by 12.5%, at least on the ground. And we also found that Spider-Man falls extremely quickly, and that, for the most part, the scaling that Spider-Man on PS4 uses for its waypoint system is actually rather accurate. The only thing I noticed was that while experimenting and discovering times in order to see if the Blitz also augments web swinging speed, which, if it did, I failed to find it because I actually found that Blitz was slower. This is probably an anomalous result, and I'm going to have to find another way to experiment in order to confirm this at a later date. But what I did find, well, first off, my times without the Blitz was 41.5 seconds, whereas with the Blitz it was 43.3 seconds. But what I also found is that Central Park is supposed to be 2.5 miles long. In Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4, at least with the experiments I was running, it was 1.24 kilometers, or 1.99 miles. Central Park is essentially half a mile shorter than it is in game, than it is in the real world, which is something kind of interesting. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to ring the bell, and feel free to suggest more theories for me to cover in the Chamber of the Wraith. As always, DFTBA.